Protect the shooter. That's what it's turned into. You know, chicks dig the long ball, and that's what it's about.
Where's the love for the driver? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to First Take on a Monday. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Molly Karam here in Bristol. Max and Stephen A. on the road. Fellas, good day. How we feeling?
Good morning. What's up? Good morning. How y'all doing? Hope y'all had a wonderful weekend.
Yes.
Likewise.
Let's get into it, gentlemen. It was Cavs Spurs Sunday, but for LeBron, it felt more like Cleveland versus the refs. LeBron was 1 assist shy of a triple-double, but had just 4 free throw attempts and a loss. The Cavs were whistled for 24 fouls in a game. The Spurs were called for 12. Stephen A., you heard LeBron complaining about the refs. Is it legit?
Well, no, not to me. And here's the reason why. I'm not trying to sit there and say that there have been times on many occasions where LeBron James deserved a foul and didn't get called for it. We understand that comes with the game. What's happened to him has happened to practically every player in the NBA. I've never met a player that hasn't complained about the officiating. I've never met a player that's a primary offensive option that hasn't complained about a lack of calls. We understand that's what comes with the territory. But in the case of LeBron James, everybody can talk about he's bigger, he's stronger, so he should just accept punishment. I'm not one of those who fall under that belief. I don't believe a foul is a foul. I get that. But I also think that there's something to be said for initiating the contact. When you are a locomotive coming at people, it's not their job to just move out the way and let you score. The fact is that when you're a defender, you're going to be formidable to some degree. So LeBron James, we going to the free throw line more? Sure, absolutely so. But in the same breath, he does initiate a lot of contact. He does initiate a lot of the physicality and violence that comes his way. It's not like he's sitting out there shooting pretty jump shots all the time, even though he shoots fallaways and he shoots threes, but he also initiates a lot of contact. And when you're initiating a lot of contact, it's incumbent upon the official to recognize that as well. So if somebody is being physical with you, but they're getting in position where they are creating a roadblock for you per se, and the contact takes place. Well, if you initiated that contact, sometimes it's not a foul on their part. Sometimes it's an offensive foul against you. And that's something that needs to be acknowledged. I recall several occasions where LeBron James could have easily been called for offensive fouls because of the contact that he initiated, and the referee just let it go. So you win some, you lose some. I'm not trying to say that there are times that he doesn't get fouled. I'm not trying to say that he only deserves 6 free throws a game. With him, he drives to the basket at least 11 and a half times, 11 to 12 times a game. I get all of that, so he should have more free throws. But there are times where he's the one that should be called for a foul instead of somebody else. And predictably so, he's not bringing that up.
So call it. So call him for a foul on the way to the basket if it's an offensive foul. Because we both know almost all the time, the fact is when he drives, there is illegal contact that is not called because, as Ty Lue brought up, and I'm glad you left this for me, Stephen A., just like with Shaquille O'Neal, this guy is such a physically dominant phenomenon that if you just apply the normal rules of basketball, the refs intuitively understand. They don't need a memo from the league. They intuitively understand. If we just call this game by the rules, LeBron's going to score 80 points a game, and 60 of them are going to be from the line. No one's going to want to see that. It's like when Ricky Henderson, the Hall of Famer for the Athletics and the Yankees and others, was it prime or played Stephen A. He was a short guy, crouched down. His strike zone was like 2 inches. You know, if the umpires would have called balls and strikes the way they're supposed to, Ricky Henderson would have walked 300 times a year and stolen 200 bases. And you know, like, you just can't play the game. So they intuitively understand that they have to change the rules for this guy. That's been the case throughout Shaq's career. That's the case now throughout LeBron's career. Before my time, Wilt Chamberlain, you can't dunk. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor in college. You can't dunk. Why not? Because if we let you do the thing you can do by the rules of the game, we don't have a game anymore. That's what's going on with LeBron. The question is, why is he bringing it up again now? That, to me, is very interesting. The game has changed. Other players are taking advantage of the rules, and those rules kind of elevate their games more maybe than they elevate LeBron's. LeBron is obviously going to face physical decline. It's had to have already begun. He's masking it well. And I think he feels like he needs to start putting it out there. Like, look, maybe I'm not going to always be the same kind of physical phenomenon. Maybe it's time to start giving me the calls that I earn on the court.
Well, listen, here's the deal. I don't buy the comparison to LeBron James against Shaquille O'Neal in this respect, Max. Shaquille O'Neal was a 7'1", 350-pound Goliath, okay, when he was playing anywhere from 315 to 350, depending on the year. This is what he brought to the table. Shaquille O'Neal lived in the paint, and what he would do is drop step. He would spin. Obviously, because of his height and size, when he spin and turn around, his elbow or whatever, his elbow, shoulder, whatever the case may be, he spent around. And if you didn't duck, you might get decapitated, for crying out loud. This is the kind of dominant force that he was. He wasn't somebody traveling from the outside on the perimeter into the paint, coming at you with all of that room available to get in front of you. Take into account this, Max. When you, in today's NBA game, you've got to step outside of the circle. And if you could step outside of the circle before somebody launches and they launch into you, it's an offensive foul because you've gotten your feet outside of the circle. You've gotten planted, and you could draw the offensive foul that way. That's not something you take into consideration when it comes to a Shaquille O'Neal. So because of that, you're living in the paint. And we got bodies flying all over the place, elbows and everything else going on down there. The hacker Shaq had to be employed or whatever because he was so dominant and so powerful. But again, you're in the paint area. LeBron James is traveling from the perimeter in most instances. If LeBron was posting up and he wasn't getting any fouls, it would be a different argument to some degree, even though there was a couple of things that got missed yesterday. So for the most part, he's coming from the perimeter. And because he's coming from the perimeter and he's traveling to the basket, that is a different process. And I don't think it's comparable to what Shaquille O'Neal had to go through.
You're right, because LeBron can also post. He usually chooses not to do that. It's always been about the painted area, the NBA. It's still about the painted area. Because if you have a great jump shooting team, but you have no one who can get dribble penetration or post up, you're not going to win a lot of games, right? It's still about getting there and collapsing the defense and getting other guys open looks or else finishing at the rim. How you do it is different depending on the player. Shaq posted and LeBron takes you off the dribble, right? Or it has that forward momentum. So sure, there's a difference. But LeBron James is the first non-quote-unquote big where you really have to change the rules. I mentioned Wilt and Jabbar before my time a little bit, at least when they changed the rules for Alcindor in college. But from what I remember watching the NBA in my lifetime, it's been Shaq and it's been LeBron. LeBron is the first big, so to speak, where the refs are basically changing the rules, not in his favor. You know, Jordan got a lot of calls, right? LeBron, one of those who want to argue LeBron over Jordan, I am not one of them. But for the young kids who, idolize LeBron that way because he's their guy, they could argue that. Look, whereas Jordan got a lot of calls because he wasn't a big guy, LeBron doesn't get calls that he should get. And Stephen A., in terms of who's a big and who's not, the guys have gotten so much bigger. LeBron James is like Karl Malone size. LeBron James is like Patrick Ewing weight. You know, this is a big, strong dude. And even though he's coming in through motion, he's not just posting up. I think the referees recognize that's a foul, that's a foul, that's a foul. We can't call all that. All those hands on him, all that contact, we can't call all that because no one wants to see a game where LeBron James is shooting free throws all day, which is what would happen. That's what would happen. We all know it. You want to sit there watching LeBron shoot 70% from the line, getting there 100 times? LeBron knows that's not going to happen. Who wants to watch that? The refs know it too.
Well, again, I think your argument is different because the fact is you're making the argument that he'd live at the line and the referees know that, so they don't call what should be called. I'm making the argument that he's not fouled as much as he says he is. I know he's fouled a lot, but there are also many occasions where he could be called for an offensive foul because he's traveling from the perimeter to the basket, and more often than not, he's initiating contact from that position. He's coming at you, initiating the contact, where somebody like Shaq was living in the post, dealing with contact even when he doesn't have the ball. So it's two different things.
I understand it's two different things, but by the rules of the game, if the other guy has an established position, if they're both moving and the other guy's hands are all over him, that's a foul. Like, we all know what a foul looks like. We see that all the time.
And I'm saying sometimes that's not the case. I'm saying sometimes they have established position, and LeBron James initiates contact, and there are no calls that are made then.
Yeah, so what are you arguing? It's 80% of the time he thinks it is. It's not 100% of the time. I agree. My question is, why is he bringing it up?
Isn't that significant? 20%, isn't that significant?
But my point is,
he's bringing it up because they lost.
He's bringing it, I think, also because
at the end of the day, though, we can all agree the officiating didn't cost them the game. Correct?
That's right. That's right. He's griping because I think the league has changed in such a way that it favors the skill sets of other players above his a little bit, and he's getting to the age where he thinks he needs a little help. He can't just keep playing with uneven rules.
All right, speaking of needing help, Saturday night it was Warriors-Thunder round 3. OKC won the first time around, but Golden State stomped them out this time around with a 32-point win. But that wasn't the only story. Jaja Pachulia back.